Gabriel Fernandez was banned from LAIC. Sorry, not banned. DQed from the Masters Finals. And this was announced by Pokemon a few hours ago now, really, saying as a result of a post-game ruling, there's been adjustment to our 2026 LAIC TCG Masters finalists this weekend. And you can see here that Sebastian is now in the finals in Gabriel's place. So obviously Gabriel's been DQ'd and Sebastian obviously just automatically goes into the finals as a result. So that must be crazy news for him to know. So best of luck to him. Right, and with that, Gabriel himself made a statement. I'm going to just make it a little bit easier for you, so give me a second to read. It's butchered, but you can read it. He said, got DQ'd at LAIC because I did a riffle shuffle once versus Sebastian on top 4 stream with the cards facing me. You can see that on the stream, and I don't see a big problem because I did randomize it a lot with mass shuffling and facing the other way after that riffle. We will take a look at the footage as well, so don't worry about that. But the judge said I didn't do it enough. To be honest, I'm not a magician, and they said I memorized a bunch of cards. So after Sebastian shuffled my deck as well, I knew the order of my deck. Okay, I don't know if Gabriel's first language is English, but I don't know if I've read that wrong or something. To be honest, I'm not a magician, and they said I memorized a bunch of cards. So after Sebastian shuffled my deck as well, I knew the order of my deck. I think what he's trying to say there is that they think he's got this incredible memory and was able to memorize the cards after shuffling and even after Sebastian shuffled it with the face-up riffle that he did. I never cheated / stacked in a game, so that's rock bottom for me. From celebrating my undefeated run and facing a friend in finals to getting DQ'd for not apparently shuffling enough so I could memorize my cards after Sebastian shuffled my deck. Well, there's not really anything following that, but that's what he said. Maybe I've read that wrong. At Gdansk stream, I asked a judge if that shuffle was fine, and he said, okay, if you randomize it randomize it a ton after, but now this happened. Another interesting thing to think about. Well, thanks to all the kind people who looked up to me and took pictures with me during these events. You guys are the ones who motivated me to become better every day. I'm officially retiring from Pokemon. Whether he upholds that or not, we'll just have to wait and see. But, that's his personal decision by all means, right? I'm not going to go too deep into that one. But there's a few things, obviously, to break down from there, right? The first one, of course, being not seeing a big problem about doing it shuffling with the cards facing up if you mash afterwards, and if it was shuffled by the opponent as well. I can see how there's still a slight problem there, but I do think it's a bit of a reach because there is a super a niche scenario, I guess, where, and I don't think I didn't watch the game, but I don't think this is the case here, where let's say your early game, right? And you haven't played any cards that's allowed you to look at your deck and check the prizes. If you shuffle face up then, you're seeing cards that are confirmed. Obviously, you're gaining info, right? You can see cards that are not in the prizes, therefore gaining some form of competitive advantage that you otherwise would not have had if you shuffled face down, which at that point in time is a form of cheating, right? But is that a reach? Is that well, at that point, do we need to apply some sort of context? I know there's rulings, and we'll get to that in a second, actually, but do you need to apply context? Because I think in this case, it's probably a yes, right? I think that's kind of common sense. If he's matched it up to the point where it's randomized anyway afterwards, if it's at a point in the game where he's visibly prize checked or he's had access to his deck and seen his deck multiple times by that point, is it worthy of a DQ from a finals at LAIC? That's an interesting question to pose, right? So anyway, that's something I just wanted to bring up. In terms of the opponent shuffling the deck, I don't know if that stands alone as a point. And my thought process on that is there are cheaters who will cheat, stack their deck, and then pass it to their opponent and just kind of low-key hope their opponent just taps it, right? There's many cases where that's happened where I'm just thinking off top of the dome from my memory. I haven't got any right now on me to show, but there's cases where people would cheat, hand their deck to their opponent kind of as a bluff, knowing their opponent's going to be, is not going to cut it, whatever, So saying your opponent shuffled it afterwards is kind of a null point because it's not about what your opponent does. It's about what you do during that time where you're playing. It's nothing about your opponent's actions, right? But again, I understand it because it was also shuffled by the opponent. So you do need to kind of take that into account, I guess, to a degree. But ultimately, it's down to his shuffling afterwards, right? So yeah, that's something we'll maybe talk a little bit more about when we look at the shuffle. And on the point of speaking to a judge at Gdansk and being told one thing and then it being enforced differently, if that is true, again, we're just assuming it's correct at this point in time. There's no information to say not, no information to say otherwise. So very he said, she said, all that, innit? I can fully get that frustration, right? I can get that. His brother, Vinny Fernandez, also made a tweet, which we will, I'll get to. I just need to resize my window again. Here we are, where he says, the judges who confirmed us that Gabriel got to us, I'm assuming he's mean to say, that Gabriel got disqualified, told us this was the reason. The face up shuffling. Nothing about me doing hand signals or anything, because that never happened. Stop with the fake news. Everyone should see this video and come up with their own conclusions. So there has been word going around that not only was he doing these shuffles, that Vinny in the crowds was giving some hand signals to indicate, give information and the like, Again, from what I've seen with what I've looked at online with Twitter so far, there's nothing actually coming up to confirm this. There's anecdotal evidence, but when it comes to DQing, when it comes to these things, anecdotal only goes so far. Except there's a lot of anecdotal evidence piling up now over time, but that's something different as well. So that's what Vinny has said so far. People are also pointing out a very interesting interaction here with this card. And I will show you it. There's going to be one more statement I'm going to show where Gabriel also said, I've seen some people talk about hand signals, did not happen. Even the judges confirmed. They talked to me today at the venue, and it was the stupid riffle shuffle. So Gabriel has confirmed himself, although Pokemon hasn't. That what's happened here is it was the face-up riffle shuffle that was reviewed, and that resulted in a DQ. Straight up. That is the cause. At least to the best of our knowledge now, no statement from Pokemon. These are all based on information that Gabriel and Vinny have provided. So you got to obviously take that with a pinch of salt too. Anyway, let's take a little look. You can already see it playing here at the shuffle, okay? Can I play it in slower speed? Let's play it in a bit of slower speed. I'll do 0.5. That's interesting, right? However, we're going to keep watching. I don't know if you can see too well on the compression, but in that mash shuffle, the first mash he takes, and that one that just there, he's taking the top card of the deck. I haven't got a deck on me right now, but he's taking the top card. So from what I can see, this is my own eyes. May they deceive me. Oh, hopefully not. He's gone for this riffle and the card at the top of this cut, right? So he's cut the deck, and in his, what would be his left hand facing us, as he's gone to grab it, his finger has pushed up the top card of that cut, and it's pinged up as a result. And he's put it back, I think, is what's happened there. That's what it looks like. That's where the card comes from. Because I can't, looking at it from here, it doesn't look like it's coming from the bottom of the deck. It looks like it's coming from the top. But let's say it's coming from the bottom. I think it's coming from the top, which means what he could be doing is he could flick that up, take a peek. His eyes are looking down at this point, something to bear in mind. Take a peek, go, oh, I want that card, and then put it on top of the deck and then shuffle and stack it. Now, yeah, that's really suspicious. But again, innocent to proven guilty. It's always best to attribute incompetence instead of malice. That said, though, let's play devil's advocate and say that he looked at a card, he saw that card, wanted it at the top of the deck. He riffles. That card is at the top. I can see it here. So that, again, supports that basis. He's riffling. He's looking down. Now, I don't know if he's looking at this point, if he's looking at his deck. He's looking straight down here. So he's not looking at his deck, but he's definitely seeing the cards. I would say that's most likely the case. But anyway, he looks away. He is now mash shuffling. And that first cut, if I'm looking at that correctly, comes from the top of the deck, which means the stacked card, if we were following that thought process, has now been shuffled into the deck, right? So at this point in time, again, that's a cut off the top. You can see by his finger movement, I believe that cut is from the top of the deck again. It doesn't look like an intent to stack. Okay. So on that, like, card flicking out, I think that based on my own eyes, I think that was just coincidental, and it's not supporting him. It's not making it look so good. He does obviously shuffle, you know, multiple times. It was 9 times I think he mashed at that point, looking away, not looking at the bottom of the deck. And then he does hand it to his opponent. There's not much left of this clip that I could see that shows his opponent shuffling, but just take his word for it. It's obviously going to be on stream anyway. Also, I did watch this in post as well. This is just me post editing, by the way. And you can actually see that before even doing the shuffle, he did a deck check. Right there is a deck check taking place. He gets a card down. That's the Tatsugiri. And then he initiates that very weird shuffle with the face up. I also waited to check to see if the opponent shuffled a deck, but that wasn't shown on stream. So as it stands, right? It seems like the only offense so far is just the face-up shuffle. I don't think he's stacked. I don't think he's done anything truly problematic. And with the face-up shuffle, he's shuffled 9 times, mashed. I don't think there's any stacking. I don't think that's happening, if I'm honest with you, based on what I've seen. Okay? Let's look at some other tweets. See where we go from there. Someone made a tweet here saying, not having an official statement on what happened and why Gabriel Fernandez was DQ'd is wild. Why this lack of transparency? Community has a right to know. This I back, right? I back this because apparently, again, down the windpipe, and maybe there's evidence of this, so again, take a pinch of salt. Pokemon has said beforehand that they do aim to be more transparent. So, yeah, I don't know. The consequence of that transparency is maybe something they're heavily weighing into, but I still think that transparency is needed because we're now just speculating and understanding, and that's super important because, you know, if he got DQ'd and we understand what Pokemon has said, this is why he was DQ'd, then players can understand the correct code of conduct, the best way to behave in accordance with what Pokemon expects to be acceptable, right? You know, you don't want to be like shuffling face-up action and getting a DQ when you don't know yourself if that's actually any sort of rulings. So having statements and transparency is super important for players going forward, I think. So I think the consequence of that transparency is still outweighed by the benefits, I guess you could say. And that's kind of where I land on it, which is why I think they should be transparent. Even, again, playing devil's advocate and considering other potential consequences of them being transparent. I know, I'm waffling, I'm yapping. Here's something interesting. So this is a tweet I saw as well that I wanted to point out. Gabriel Fernandez in yet another cheating scandal, this time having him DQ'd after reaching the finals. Deck stacking and hand signals from his brother in public at this point. How much of his senior's career is also put into question. So this is something that I want to talk about, right? This tweet is not questioning anything it is questioning the integrity of his senior career, but it's not questioning the action. It's not questioning the intention. It is basically downright stating he is deck stacking and has hand signals from his brother in public. Here's the thing. People can say this, right? And they can make those accusations for sure. I don't think there's any problem with that. I think open dialogue is super important in any community. But here's the thing. People will and do and are just taking this as straight fact, okay? Maybe there's anecdotal evidence of it taking place. There's another issue he had beforehand, which we're going to get into, where he was again accused of cheating beforehand in Lille, I think it was. People are just now kind of jumping the shark, I think, a bit, you know. And I get it. If there's like a bunch of accusations coming over time, you know, people are going to start to genuinely question you. But the biggest issue with Twitter and the Pokemon community, I've seen it happen before, is they will eat people alive the moment they catch a whiff of some foul play, instead of actually stopping and going, wait, how about that? Let's think about this critically. Critical thinking in this community, a little bit cooked. Can't lie. It's not as much of a thing as I would like to see. So doing this, I think is potentially harmful in my opinion. Either way, the scandal that person was referring to is this one here, where Mateus spoke out, and this is not even that long ago. This is like a few weeks ago now. And in Pokemon competitions talk, that's very, very recent. Talking about how Gabriel Fernandez effectively was digging for a boss's orders. It's long, I'll simplify it. Digging for a boss's orders, had 3 cards left, used the trade, used 2 trades and 1 fez to do it, and didn't hit the boss for game. He then said how Mateus said that Gabriel then was counting his deck or something down that line, and maybe caught a glimpse of the bottom card, and then played a rod, which is obviously counterintuitive to, digging for a card because you increase your deck size to maybe shuffle it. That's one questionable thing. But the main point that was made here was that he apparently, according to Mateus, tried to use a trade again on one other Zorag. So he used 2 trades and a fez, and that's all he had access to. And then after playing that rod, tried again to trade. He called a judge over. The judge ruled in Gabriel's favor, allowing him to again trade. Gabriel whiffed it, didn't actually get the boss, and Mateus eventually just whiffed the game anyway. But outcome aside, again, this is all anecdotal, right? We don't know what actually happened, but it doesn't lend in favor of Gabriel, right? And I think it's this plus other pieces of anecdotal stories and evidence popping up over time that's led to this Twitter dogpile that's happening right now onto Gabriel. I think it's a mixture of things. I think it's people wanting justice. I think it's people who are jealous as well. I think mixed in there, kind of jumping on the bandwagon. One thing for me overall is I am ultimately a little bit disappointed in Pokemon's current lack of communication, and also in the community a little bit in jumping so heavily onto a thing like this. Don't get me wrong, I've seen a lot of people actually be a lot more honest about this than I think I would have expected to see, but it's still disappointing to see so many people dogpiling onto him when we don't know the full story. You know what I mean? We don't know it yet. We've just got Gabriel's side, whether Pokemon talks about it or not is wait to we'll wait and see, but it seems just a bit quick for people to come in and just be like, cheater, that's it, he's out, ban him, get rid of it. I've seen a lot of tweets like that. Relax, brother, relax. I'm not saying he didn't cheat. I'm not saying that ain't the case at all, and it ain't looking good, bruv. You know what I mean? If you catch a few strays that many times, odds are you're up to something fishy. Maybe he's trying to walk that line. Who knows, right? And I'm not trying to stick up for him for anything down that line. I'm just trying to say, nothing's confirmed, but it also is a bit sus. I think the reasonable reaction would be, that's suspicious. That's it, right? You should just, that's suspicious. Maybe we keep an eye on him. It's not looking so good. Apparently, I've heard this, I've heard that. Just keep your eye, and realize the fact that there is no actual evidence of cheating taking place. Just none. And when it comes to championships, when it comes to rulings, when it comes to public opinion, it really should be cut by that line. It should just be like, well, is there evidence? No. So we can remain suspicious, but let's not assume guilt the moment something fishy pops up again, right? I know it's a tough line to walk as well, because you have to, I guess, remove your perspective of seeing things in black and white and understand that it's gray. It's always gray. There's nuance. Anyway, that's kind of where we're at now. There was also, actually, I'll show more information by Jake Gearhart, which I thought was interesting as well, actually, where he actually did bring up some rulings, official statements. So he said this ruling warrants an official statement from TPCI. So the DQ, warrants a statement. If, as Gabriel claims, the disqualification is due to exclusively to shuffling face up, which was followed by a 9 face down mass shuffles, the first sentence is, to my knowledge, the only applicable excerpt from the TCG rulebook. Now, Jake Gearhart, very reputable in this case, I'm using that word correctly, bringing up this, okay? And you can see it, that's great. So the only ruling, apparently, according to Jake Gearhart this time, that, and he's obviously, of course, reliable, that can apply to this DQ is care should also be taken to ensure that the cards in the deck are not harmed or revealed during shuffle, and insufficiently randomizing the deck is a rules violation that may carry a penalty. So, yeah, in the ruling, you could deduce, I guess you could say, that shuffling face up is revealing a card, revealing 2 cards, right? And on that is insufficiently randomizing the deck is a rules violation, I think we could probably agree, seeing that shuffle, that it wasn't insufficient. I think we can agree on that, right? I think we're at a point where we can sit there and go that was a sufficient shuffle, right? Especially adding, we're not even taking into account Sebastian further shuffling it, but adding into that. So we can probably forget that one, 6.22, because I think it's sufficient. And if the judge ruled it insufficient, then I think that's a flaw on the judge's front. But again, don't go attacking judges. It's nuanced. These are people involved, okay? It's not judge bad, player good, or player bad, judge good. It's not that simple. But care should also be taken to ensure that the cards in the deck are not revealed during shuffle. This is where it gets complicated, right? Because there are many shuffles I've seen on stream where a card flips out, right? And it's resolved instantly by shuffling the deck again because it randomizes it. Now, obviously, it's not the same randomization that would happen if the card didn't come out, yada, yada. But in that case, you could say, well, that clearly there's no fault there. That was out of someone's control. The card flipped out. You know, that happens. Whereas this one is like, well, you decided to shuffle face up. So it seems like the real crime here is just deciding to shuffle face up. And we now have to determine whether or not a DQ is actually a sufficient punishment for that decision. I would say a ruling. If he's been, this is why we need a statement, right? Not a ruling, sorry, a warning. This is where you need a statement, because if Pokemon then comes out and says, yeah, we warned him multiple times about doing it and he kept doing it, fine, I get it. But if that was a first time DQ, my opinion stands currently that that's just too harsh. But again, as I said, there's always other sides to the story. There's always more information. But from what I can gather, bro, it's looking a bit harsh. And I think the dogpiling's a bit harsh. That's not to defend him. That's not to say he isn't a cheater. It's not to say this Donnie ain't sus. It's to say that things are a little bit more complicated than just good, bad. You know? Interesting stuff. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you think. I know I'm not one to really dive into drama and all that kind of stuff, but I just found it super interesting. I guess my interest lies more into how this is actually being dealt with by Pokemon, because it's all up in the air, you know? Yeah. Anyway, oh God, I was gonna do a moist critical, but that's about it. See ya.